All right, so I have a bit of a bizarre episode of News Dose for you all today. Exclusivity has been a big conversation this year as Xbox looks to make some changes. And Sony, they're flying a little bit more under the radar, but they've definitely opened up their views towards exclusivity throughout this generation. And here we are on a Monday, and we got news for both of those situations. There is a PlayStation collaboration that could possibly be heading over to Xbox sometime soon. And there's also rumors that Xbox is currently analyzing a drastic shift for their console business. Now, in some ways, I kind of think this leans into what I said last week. Make sure to go check out my video about Xbox's next generation strategy, but we will touch upon that a little bit more today. So stay tuned for all of that, but as always, we have a lot more to talk about, and I want to start off on a high note. Elden Ring is easily my favorite game of this generation. And one of the really cool things about Elden Ring is that it completely and just utterly shatters the narrative that developers have to make them easy to reach a large audience. I mean, if that's what developers want to do, then hey, okay, that's perfectly fine. There's plenty of easy games out there that are also great. But this idea that developers have to include an easy mode to succeed, that clearly isn't true. There's a lot of gamers out there that wants to challenge their skills. They want the entire game to be balanced with that in mind, and they want to be on equal footing across the board. And From Software has ultimately proven that that type of game can absolutely succeed with flying colors. They've painstakingly grown their reputation with this philosophy over the past decade and a half, and now they've been rewarded majorly with one of the most successful games ever made. They just announced that Elden Ring has officially sold 28.6 million copies worldwide. Just absolutely incredible. And also that the Dark Souls series has sold more than 35 million copies. So big congrats to From Software. I think this is an amazing achievement, and I think it also really speaks to the idea that there's multiple ways to succeed in the game industry. And hey, we still have Elden Ring Night Reign to look forward to next year. So this IP is going to continue to grow even more. Now, we also got some Capcom news that I think is incredibly exciting, especially if you've been playing games for a long time. In today's era, Capcom is, mostly known for games like Resident Evil, Street Fighter, and Monster Hunter, to name a few. But they have so many other great franchises in their back catalog, and they just confirmed that they're currently exploring ways to reactivate some of those games. They said in addition to regularly releasing major new titles each year, Capcom is focusing on reactivating dormant IPs that haven't had a new title launch recently. The company is working to further enhance corporate value by leveraging its rich library of content, which includes reviving past IPs like the two titles announced above, in order to continuously produce highly efficient, high-quality titles. Now, the two games that they're referring to is the recently announced Onimusha and Okami sequel. I mean, hey, those two alone are incredibly exciting as is. But it sounds like this is only the beginning of more to come. They're doing something very similar to Sega, where they're reviving a number of dormant IP. And when you look at Capcom and all of the franchises that they own, I mean, there's a lot of potential with an initiative like this. They have franchises like Mega Man. They have Devil May Cry. They have Ghosts and Goblins. There's Breath of Fire, which I think that'd be a really cool revival. And then the one that I've been calling for years, I know a lot of people have been calling for this one, and that's Dino Crisis. I mean, just seeing what they've managed to do with the Resident Evil franchise and its remakes, I mean, those are some of the best games that you can play right now. So, I mean, I just think a Dino Crisis remake seems like an absolute no-brainer. Dino Crisis has a lot of similarities with the Resident Evil franchise, except for it has dinosaurs, which might even be cooler than zombies. So definitely, Dino Crisis gets my vote. And if anything else, a possible revival just shot way, way up the charts. Now, unfortunately, Sega in an interview gave an update for last year's Sonic game being Sonic Superstars, and they called it a disappointment. You can see here where they said, "That's a very good question. We were trying to do something creative with Sonic Frontiers. With Sonic Superstars, it turned out to be a disappointment in terms of the outcome compared to what we delivered. This time we have Sonic X Shadow Generations and the next Sonic movie, so we're pushing things in the transmedia direction. Movies and games working in harmony to make things bigger. But the core of the experience is the game. The game needs to be very good, or else there is no transmedia effect." So, I mean, honestly, I don't really think that this is shocking to hear. Transmedia can definitely be a big thing for the game industry. That's why we've seen a lot of game-to-movie adaptations here recently. But, just in terms of Sonic, when Superstars was first announced, it was an exciting idea. The art style looked interesting, and Sonic historically has been a beloved 2D franchise. So the idea that there was a new 2D entry in 2023, it sounded good on paper, but not only did it have some issues in terms of its gameplay, but Sega also made a major mistake by launching it the same week as Mario Wonder. I remember complaining about this a lot last year. I thought it was absolutely a ridiculous idea to do. I thought it was a huge mistake. And ultimately, they've now admitted that, yes, that was a big mistake. Sega, by all means, should know better than to make a mistake like that. They need to be smarter, and this really goes for all game companies out there. You do need to kind of pay attention to the games that are releasing around the same time frame that your game is releasing. But, I guess it is what it is. Hopefully, Sega will learn from this, and at the very least, Sonic X Shadow Generations appears to be a big-time success this year. So they already bounced back, and hopefully that will continue on in the future as well. Okay, so let's go talk about exclusivity, because that's been a big talking point all year long. And I see it in the comments all the time. There's a lot of people that 100% believes that console exclusivity is important. And then there's also other people that are in the mindset that exclusivity is a dying business. So no matter which side you sit on, what we've seen firsthand for ourselves is that there have, yes, been some changes from Xbox and then with PlayStation to a lesser extent. And based on some of the rumors that are currently going around, Xbox could be going through even more changes in the coming years. They're the ones that are making some of the most unexpected changes. They've already ported a few of their first-party games over to rival consoles, and they even have a few games that are releasing next year that will launch on PlayStation day one. That includes The Outer Worlds 2 and Doom: The Dark Ages. Now, we can say that that's because they have a legacy on PlayStation, and that might be true. We know that they have other games that are launching exclusive on Xbox, such as Avowed, South of Midnight, Fable, Gears of War E-Day, Perfect Dark, and so on and so forth. So, as of this time, they still absolutely have exclusives in their pipeline. But this is where things start to get really interesting, because according to Jez Corden, which, he's gotten some things right in the past, he's also gotten some things wrong, but he claims that Xbox won't have exclusives going forward. Everything is timed exclusive at most. Now, he later on clarified that Microsoft doesn't want to fully commit because he thinks they're still analyzing whether or not it will actually decrease console engagement. Right now, it isn't. If it does, then maybe they change course. The problem is that their console market is flat either way right now. So in other words, this timed exclusive strategy isn't internally settled quite yet. They are still kind of analyzing and debating on what they should do going forward. It all seemingly depends on whether or not their console engagement decreases in a result of having less exclusives. And my thinking on that is that I don't necessarily think that this generation will be significantly impacted by these exclusive decisions. People who already bought the Xbox Series ecosystem will continue to play on those consoles. They already paid for them. I think it's their next console that could potentially be impacted by a strategy like this. Can Xbox convince gamers to buy into their next console if they have a timed exclusive strategy in place? We've never seen something like this in the console business before. That's where these decisions could potentially come back to bite them. But it seems like they believe the power of something like Game Pass and what it has to offer. That seems to be one of the things that Xbox is really banking on right now. The idea that Xbox Game Pass alone can be a system seller for them. And the more I hear about Xbox's internal plans, the more convinced I become that they're possibly preparing to do something that nobody's expecting. I talked about this last week. Again, go check out my video, but I think there's a possibility that their next console, or consoles actually, will be something completely different than what we're used to seeing from a traditional home console. I almost wonder if what they're doing is that they're building an Xbox OS similar to what Valve is doing with SteamOS and Linux. It was even claimed earlier this year, actually by Jez Corden himself, that the next Xbox has a heavy Windows slant to it, and it will be a reference device for third-party companies. In other words, an operating system that companies like ROG could use to make their own Xbox console with this operating system, which is exactly what Valve is currently doing with SteamOS and Linux. And one advantage that Microsoft has is that they are a PC-first company. It's always been speculated that they could tie Xbox and their Windows platforms together. So if they manage to make an Xbox OS, which I think there's evidence out there that they could be, then this could potentially allow them to have the most open console next generation. A console that could potentially play Xbox games, and then also Windows games, which includes Steam, and even PlayStation games that are available on Steam. So that could be a groundbreaking achievement, and if they could pull this off, which I mean, that part remains to be seen, but it would really help differentiate their platform from the competition. I mean, PC continues to be a growing market. We see that all the time over on Steam. And maybe that's what Xbox is currently focusing on, tying their PC and console market into a singular platform. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Do you like this idea of a PC-Xbox-esque combination? And would you buy into that if they have a timed exclusive strategy in place? Now, as for PlayStation and their exclusive strategy, I fully expect them to continue to put a heavy emphasis on their console exclusivity. But, we've seen them become a little bit more open-minded this generation, which includes staggered PC releases, cloud game streaming to things like the Portal, and maybe the most surprising one being a collaboration that involves their IP, Horizon Legos, which launched on PlayStation and for the Nintendo Switch day one. Now, a lot of that decision likely comes from the Lego company themselves, but Sony must have convinced them to keep it off of Xbox, or at least for the time being. Because now there's a new report going around that an Xbox release could actually be inbound. You can see this posted up on Insider Gaming, where they said that's according to Arab media outlet Just Play It, who claim that their sources have said that LEGO Horizon Adventures will be coming to Xbox in the coming months. While the outlet did not give a specific date, they said it's likely to come in the first months of 2025 at most, and even went as far as to speculate that it could be sooner. So, yeah, there you go. A little unexpected, but again, this is a LEGO collaboration, so I'm sure they have a lot of say on the matter. I mean, I wouldn't expect the mainline Horizon games to come over to Xbox, but if I look at where Sony was just 10 years ago with their mentality back then, I don't even think they would have even allowed this as a multi-platform game. So they have become a lot more open-minded throughout this generation. Let me know what you all think about all this, though, and how do you see the future of the game industry? Where do you think exclusives will be, let's say, 10 to 15 years from now? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, and peace out.